Hello, hello, Soul Crew. Lovely to see you in this now moment. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your awareness and your presence. So today I have a very particular transmission for a couple of you out there that might have asked for some sort of validation or guidance or pointers with regards to how to move on from very tough I'll call it like transitions in life, like whereas you went through something very cathartic or very traumatic or very profound and your reality just like shifted completely. So it's like how to reclaim yourself and how to move on from that and how to rebuild your life. Something that comes up very strongly is like recognizing that you are the architect of your life, and even if you were invested in a life project and then all of a sudden, or maybe not even all of a sudden, it was like in the making over years, and then your reality just collapsed on you and you're just like, oh my god, I put so much effort into that and that didn't happen. And again, it could be some sort of, this feels like a very deep major sort of loss, however that looks for you, but it just feels existentially deep, like even feelings of like, I'm never going to be able to move on from this, nothing is ever going to be the same, just like this very, very deep yearn for what used to be. I commend you. I send you compassion and lots of support, because it can be tough. It can be tough when major pillars in your life collapse, whether that's a person, a situation, resources. Like I said, it looks very different for a few of you, for a couple of you. So I'm going to try to keep it general, but indeed bring validation that you're supported, that this to a certain degree didn't happen overnight really. And I know there's pain there, just like going back and recognizing how things could have been better, what we could have done, how we played a part. Like there's a lot of reminiscence, but also borderline like ruminating on things that are outside of your control. So this is probably also geared towards very rational people, maybe some of us out there like overthinkers. We have very good intentions, but we overlap between very good intentions and control, because a lot of the circumstances here were outside of our control. And for many of you, if there were others involved, their souls had their own journey and their own process. And even if their departure or their transition or their transmutation impacts your journey, I invite you to observe yourself and how this impacts you, rather than wishing that their soul would have done something different or that things would have been different, because if they were supposed to be different, they would have. It's vibrational. Again, I commend you, all of my support. I can feel some of the situations are tough, and just like how to reinvent yourself after having invested so much time or projecting yourself with a certain outcome, whereas you were like, it's either this or nothing, and then that didn't happen and you're feeling in this void of nothingness. I'm just trying to kind of give the broadest overview so that you know that if this message is for you, it's going to resonate, and if it's not, it's fine. These transmissions are not always for everybody. Some of them are geared to a very particular members of the crew that might have requested or prayed for some validation, and I'm humbly here just trying to transmit some sort of support, light, and guidance, so that you may know that you're supported, you're being heard, you're being accompanied, and you're here for a reason. And the fact that we ran into each other in this massive intraweb is just quite the synchronicity. So without further ado, thank you so much for your patience and your time, and I will bring you some insights at different levels, just so that we can orient ourselves a little bit more on what's to come, what's happening. So yeah, let me see what comes up. I commend you. I commend you. I know this is tough. Beautiful stuff coming through. But yeah, let's recognize when things are hard, they can be very hard. There's a phrase that is like, tough is tough. Let's feel through that. Yet, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do for yourself, right? At some point, it's okay to recognize that we've been a victim of some sort of situation, or that it feels unfair. Yet, at some point, we also have to redeem ourselves and make up for ourselves and take charge. So at a mental, rational level, I feel there's some stubbornness, there's some hardness there. It's just like having a very hard time letting go of what we feel that should have been, and we're very sharp and very cutthroat and even kind of angry at life or circumstances because we feel that it's very unfair. At an emotional level, you are doing so much progress, you're growing so much, but because of the stubbornness and the harsh emotions, we are having a hard time seeing the evolution and the process of who you are becoming throughout this journey. So I commend you to look into that, to go into your heart. I know there's a lot of pain, yet you're being invited to retreat so that you can reflect on how this is pushing you into growing, maybe in ways that you wouldn't have if things would have worked out the way you wanted them. Sometimes what we want is not what the soul needs. And I invite you to trust your own process, to trust the process and the evolution of your soul. Here, soul strength, that's what we do. We strengthen the soul, and for me, like the way I see it is not what happened, it's not what was said or how things played out. It's more, how are you going to archive them so that they serve you? That happened outside of your control. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to organize it so that it impacts the growth and the evolution of your soul rather than bring you down and just promote the victim? You know, there's a timeline and there's a time to suffer and feel like everything is unfair, but there's also a window to redeem yourself and kind of pick up the pieces. And sometimes things need to break down to break through, right? And the soul strength crew, what we do is like, this can either break me or make me, and we always take the second option. It makes us, and that's up to you on how you're going to build that up, knowing that this comes full circle. I do commend you. Like, I do want to feel very, very deeply for you and know that you're being supported, that you're being listened, that you're being heard. But there's also a part of the process that is up to you. It's up to you to stand up and grab the hand. Like, the hand is there, out, reaching. There's no rush, but there's a window, and there's just so much we can sub for ourselves. And again, there's a time and space as long as you do it consciously and reminiscent. Mind the ruminating, the over acting mind trying to just control things. Like sometimes, like I said, retreat, go into your heart, feel the feelings, stay very anchored, like feel your toes, feel your body, feel your senses, feel your breathing, like come back and anchor that energy in your body so that you can begin to process it instead of just like staying in the mind area, right? So it's like, okay, the mind is rushing, we're trying to control. At some point we just breathe in that and begin to bring the energy down and begin to root it through your toes, like begin to ground that energy, begin to feel through, right? So we let the thoughts flow a bit more, understand that there's nothing to control there. While the energy comes down, it may hurt, we may feel the feelings deeply, but then we begin to neutralize that situation. And it's very different to look at that and be like, okay, yeah, that happened, that was painful, versus us regressing every time that topic or that situation is brought up to our awareness. So that's where I want to come back to. It's time to redeem yourself. It's time to recognize that things were outside of your control. You did what you could with the capacities and the consciousness that you had at the time. And the reason things played out in that way, it's because it was vibrational. It was like the capacity that was available at hand. And just being able to recognize and reconciliate that within you, it's what's going to open up the gates for a new beginning, for you to architect yourself from a stronger ground. Whatever was happening before this point was not strong enough. It was like a drill, it was like training, it was like part of the learning curve, and then we build ourselves back up. So it's time to kind of, like I said, pick up the pieces and redeem your sense of self and begin to create and architect a new world. Whatever collapsed was not sustainable. And I know it's hard because we really wanted it to be, but like if we go deep down into the roots, I know you know. And that's why I commend you, because that doesn't make it necessarily easier or softer or gentler, but it happened. And the more we are able to accept what's outside of our control, the more we can redeem ourselves for it. Flagellating yourself is not going to get you anywhere, and being hard on yourself is not going to help with the evolution. If you are going through tough times, I recommend you begin to learn how to be gentle with yourself, because being tough on yourself through tough times tough and tough never made it easier, never made it softer. So this is an invitation for you to be more gentle. And at the end, what comes through is a rebirth. It's a rebirth where if you choose the higher path, if you choose to redeem yourself, if you choose to become an architect and for this situation to make you, you will not recognize yourself in a year. You will see this as a catalyst that brought out the potential within you, the opportunity to do things from a very conscious space. We might have been numb or kind of sleepy or groggy, you know, in the past few years. So yes, we were trying our best, but we were not fully conscious of where we were operating from, what we were doing, and the implications. I know there's a lot of intel here. Like I said, this is for a particular couple members of the crew. So if this resonates, feel free to share in the conversation below. Let me know if there's anything I can do to bring forth more clarity or insights, or how can we be of support? What would you need in order to feel supported, right? Because just a reflection exercise, whether you want to share it or just keep it to yourself, but begin to recognize what is it that you need right now in order to feel safe, in order to feel stable, without going into the past like, oh, if that person would come back or if that would have worked out. It's like, that's where we're putting a stop to that, to the addictive, controlling thoughts, and we begin to retreat into our heart and begin to neutralize and regulate our nervous system from where we're at, from this now moment. It's a beautiful opportunity for a rebirth to come full circle, not for just for who you are, but for who you've been, for the legacy of everything that happened up to this point for you to be you, if you want to call it like the ancestral process, because this moment has been in the making for millennia, right? Like there's generations ahead for you to be where you're at. And whatever needed to happen for you to come into this sense of awareness and consciousness is beautiful once we are able to see through the unnecessary suffering and the pain, because there may be some sort of suffering, if you may, like the growing pains, but it's not permanent. And if we choose to stay there, that's also a choice. So what I'm inviting you is to open up your eyes to a higher timeline where you can redeem yourself and see this as an opportunity to rebirth and be like, okay, whatever level you were playing before happened, it ended up the way it was meant to, because it was vibrational. Like I said, otherwise it would have been another sort of outcome. And right now you're going through a rebirth. So how's that gonna look moving forwards? And again, you can always count on this end to have support, guidance, and if there's anything else that we can provide in order to bring forth more visibility or strength, feel free to share it in the conversation. And I think there's enough to unpack here, and I will see you on the next timeline. Thank you so much for your patience. There was a lot there, and really appreciate your presence. Bye-bye.